Alrighty. We are live, just getting everything set up. Just make sure everything running. Looks like we're good. All right, let's get situated here. Just make sure we got everything up and running. Looks like we do. All right, I think everything is up. Got it early. Going to play a track. I finally got something new here to play for you. Actually, this is by an artist, and I think which makes this unique. This is a transgender artist that sent me this track. Artist name is Queen Hyena. Her music is available on Spotify. She's also on Instagram at Miss Neon, MZNEON. Again, that's Ms. Neon on Instagram, MZNEON. I'll put it in the chat. Her artist name is Queen Hyena. I want to play a song. She's got 3 songs. I'm going to try to play maybe 2 of them, but I'm at least going to play one of them for you today. All right. So hold on, let me log in. Hold on 1 second. I'll log into the Spotify and then we'll get going. All right, here we go. So the name of the song is So Wrong, So Right. This is Queen Hyena. I'll always try to play a couple snippets of each one. And it's a different sound from some of the other music that's been sent in. And again, we're trying to kind of, diversify so we get an example of the different types of music and sounds that people are creating. I want to skim through some of them before we begin because I got to kind of get to it. I want you to listen to this one here too. This is kind of laid back and chilled just to show the diversity of the sounds. That one's So Wrong, So Right. I want you to listen to this one. This is kind of more laid back and chilled just to show the diversity. Real hardcore. Who ordered this? High class ratchetness. Ass and tits like a preteen bitch. Throwing bits while you lick my toes. Cause daddy knows how it's done. Who's your number one? There's 2 more I want to run through. Just to give you. This more up tempo. So you see different sounds. It's a little different from some of the other artists, but again, just so you get a feel. We're going to try to get Miss Neon, a.k.a. Queen Hyena, on the show. This guy, I mean, some of the tracks you hear is more of a club dance sound too. So again, just so you can see the versatility. And again, you can find the music on Spotify under Queen Hyena. I'm going to put her Instagram name also in the chat here. This is how her name is spelled on Instagram. So you guys check it out. All right. And again, we'll get into that more. I just wanted to play that, go through some of the snippets of her tracks. When we get on the show, we'll go in more depth. We'll talk a little bit and get the creative process behind the music like we do on the Hip Hop Occult show. So just going to run through some quick announcements, again, for the sake of time, get right into what I want to talk about. First, don't forget the Hip Hop and Occult show is the first Friday of every month, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But again, that is on the Primordial Facebook page, Primordial Chaos Facebook page. Not here on YouTube, again, as I said before, because we play live music and tracks, and we don't want to deal with the nonsense and the headaches of copyright strikes. So that show is done on Primordial Chaos Facebook. We usually showcase an artist in the beginning, and then we go into a topic. This upcoming month's topic is going to be the Philly hip hop scene and the history of Philly MCs and rap groups. Brother Taja, aka Trident 72, has put together a good show. He's from the area, you know, the Jersey, Philadelphia area, so he grew up around that scene. So he's going to be putting his, experience and knowledge of the history of the Philly hip hop culture and scene. Obviously, I will put my input from my experience with it growing up in New York, because there was some very impactful MCs in the 80s and 90s that came out of Philly that were very influential in New York. So we're going to talk about that on the next show. Looking forward to that. And that, I believe, I don't have the calendar in front of me, but the first Friday in August. So look out for that. Also posted on Instagram. I know people have already started to sign up for it. We have the Working with the Many Masks of Lucifer class. That'll be on I believe that's the 15th. The 15th, the middle of the month. All the information to sign up for the class is right here, also in the YouTube community section. You can find it on the Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. You could also find it on Primordial Chaos on Facebook. Okay. To sign up for the class, it's $55. The class is 3 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is done in a private Zoom video setting, so we could all interact with each other. So that class is coming up in the middle of August. It is separate from Patreon. I know some people had asked that. This is a class that's open from all. It has nothing to do with Patreon. These are classes that I offer to the public to sign up for. So you do not have to be a Patreon member, and it is not included with the Patreon, just so we're clear on that. All right, so that's coming up on the 15th. I also posted on Instagram this morning. I'm offering another form of a spiritual reading / consultation, but I will tell you this. Be very aware of this. It's strictly dealing with shadow work, uncovering. It's an actual shadow work reading that only focuses on that. And it specifically deals with specific issues in general that come up in your reading that you must focus and work on, specific, which that could involve a multitude of personal past experiences, traumas, current things that's going on now. The reading is specifically geared towards that. It's something recently through my work that has come to me, and long story short, has been skilled and perfected in that work. And I'm offering that now, which I think is an integral part, gives you another aspect. But again, that reading is specifically to uncover shadow work or shadow aspects of yourself that you need to focus on and work on. In addition, the other two forms of readings that are offered are the Lucifer Clepothic readings with the Clepothic demons, and the Holy Death or something more with the spirits of the dead. If you're interested in any of those readings or a spiritual consultation, which can be used however you want, a dialogue, question and answer forum, you can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Shoot me an email with the days and times you're available, your time zone that you live in. That's very important. And then we will set up an appointment. I'll get back to you with the information. The readings are done two forms. You can pick either, just to put this out there to avoid extra questions, you can do the reading via a Zoom video call or over the phone. I know other people said you have this app, that app. I don't like to put a million apps on my phone. Zoom is very easy. Even if you don't have it, you can just download it and unload it after the reading. It's just I can't put WhatsApp. Everybody asks, do you have WhatsApp? Do you have this? Do you have that? It's just I don't want to put all those apps on my phone, so I keep it simple. It could either be done a Zoom video call or it can be done right over the phone via a regular telephone call, which is entirely up to you. That's your choice. All right, so hit me up with that information. Everything I'm telling you is in the description box of the video, so you can find that information there. So feel free to take a look at that. Email, contact information, etc. All right, the Patreon page. For those who are Patreon members, next Saturday, not this Saturday, we have the Kali Mantra ritual that we will be doing. I will be posting a video in the next couple of days about that and some other stuff for those who are Patreon members. That video or that class is available, or that ritual is available. The tiers 3, 4, and 5 have access to that. All right. If you have not checked out the Patreon page, which is also in the description box of the videos, it's patreon.com/Beniti. I encourage you to check out the page, see the different tier levels. And I'm sure there's something on there that you can connect with as far as membership. The Patreon page is private classes, videos, lectures, rituals, exclusively only for Patreon members. It's a little more personalized. Again, the tier 5 level is a mentorship program. It's called the Red Magus Mentorship Program, which is basically a one-on-one mentorship program with me and you. And we communicate and work frequently to establish your own personal path of self-mastery and how you can work the occult and left-hand path to, get results and improve your life. Because in essence, that's why you should be on this path, period. I don't really see any other reason to. Your goal and objective should be that. That should be the motivation factor why all of us are on this path in some shape, form, or fashion. All right. And then the last thing, Journey to Black Adept Conference. Not looking good right now to do that live, as you see. Again, we see, and not to stay on it because I want to focus energy on no coronavirus, but you see cases are spiking in many states. Obviously down here, you probably see all over the news. Obviously, they're making it sound 50 times worse than it is. Everything's still functioning and opening here, but don't know restrictions and what it's going to look like in a few weeks. So we're not officially saying we ain't going to do it live anyway. In person. Either way, we will still do it if we have to do it via virtual reality, where people will be able to sign up and participate. One way or the other, it's going to happen, but we just do not know how that's going to happen at the moment. Right now, not looking great, but again, we're not going to make an official announcement on that till probably September, early to mid-September, the latest. We should have a clearer idea. So let's see what the next couple of weeks and month and a half brings, and then we'll see where we're at from there. So I encourage people, nobody to send any registration money for that event. If we do it virtual, there will be a registration fee online, and you'll be able to participate live with everything we do via Zoom. We'll do it on Zoom if we have to. Hopefully we don't, but we'll see what happens. And I think that covers a majority of the announcements. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. The more likes you hit, the channel expands out to more areas throughout YouTube on the search engines. When you subscribe to the channel, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get a notification when we go live. All right, so what I want to talk about, I want to kind of get right into it. I want to get back on our doctrine, because you can't get caught up in all this worldly shit that's going on. And, you know, there are times where it needs to be addressed, don't get me wrong. But then there are times we don't want to get too distracted by it, because then it distracts us from the work we need to do. And really, that's in essence what a lot of the stuff going on now is. All right, so what I want to talk about, I made reference to this book about a year or so ago. There's a section in here I want to go into in depth. I went into it a little bit a while back, but not in depth. The book is Mind Star by Michael Aquino. Now, let me say this before that's the book, Mind Star. This is not a book I would suggest that you breeze through. This is a book you really need to study. Just to put out there, I've made it clear on my stance, being a former member of the Temple of Set. I've made it clear in them videos, and people have asked me over the years about that. And I make it clear, I have no problem supporting and validating stuff, that I can connect with, and I have no problem speaking out on stuff that I don't agree with. And yes, to a level, it's personal on certain levels. We all have that. So I don't agree with everything. I want to make this clear. I don't agree with everything that the Temple of Set teaches or what Michael Aquino writes, because I feel that members kind of put Michael Aquino in this cult messiah-like status. That was one of my problems and one of the reasons why I left. But at the same token, if you look at videos I've talked about in the past, I have said with a lot of authors, there's many things I do agree with. So I'm not focusing on the things I don't agree with. This is one book of work that I tend to think is powerful and can benefit any real occult left-hand path student, because it deals with the strong mental aspects of black magic and working the occult or the left-hand path, whatever you want to call it. Now, I will say this, okay? I've always talked about for years that reprogramming the subconscious mind is key to really unlocking your power. When we always throw these terms out, all is mental, mental is all, the universe is mental. Half of the time, I don't really think people understand it. I think they say it because it's a catchphrase that sounds heavy, but we have to really explore this, all right? Two, when I talk about reprogramming, I'm talking about from a lot of the indoctrination that we still all suffer from, whether we're conscious of it or not. I want to stress this, just because people think, because they've been doing things sometimes for so long and so many years, they sometimes think or confuse that with being right. And I found that out years ago. You could be doing something a certain way for many years, and that doesn't make it right. It just means that you've convinced yourself that it's right. Now, there's two possibilities. I'm going to talk a little about this. When I mean possibilities, you could say, well, I've been doing something for so many years and I get results, right? And that could be a possibility, all right? So there's two ways to explore this. Doesn't mean you still should shut down your perspective and your perception of things. And then two, which is probably the category you don't want to be in, if you've been doing things so long, the same way for so many years, and you're not really getting consistent results or results in general, then that's a problem. That's when you really need to reevaluate yourself and change things. Now, change is hard for a lot of people to embrace. A lot of people might say on the surface, I've rid myself of this, I've rid myself of that, but sometimes I find that to be just lip service and tongue service, because your actions and how you respond determines, how you really perceive things. Not what you're saying, how you react via your response, and your actions kind of show that. As I said before, there's a lot of shit out here that claims to be a cult left-hand path, and it's not. It's not being judgmental. It's just being factual. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And we have to set that fine line, because individuals who are seeking to come on the path and shed those old systems of indoctrination, it can send a confusing message. It can send the wrong understanding. So having said that, without dwelling on that too much, I'm going to go into a section on this book, and want to break down the universes, right? I talked a little bit about this in the past. I want to talk about multiverses or the multiverses, because remember, our subjective realm compromises multiple universes or multiverses when you understand the concept of the power of your subconscious mind, or some call it your superconscious mind, right? Now, the importance of this to understand, by way of your subjective realm or subjective consciousness, you are constantly building, creating, and destroying your very existence, okay? This is where the very fabric and essence of your understanding of self comes from. This is where you actually connect with what we call your personal daemon that facilitates this understanding. This also connects you to, in my opinion, the proper way to work with your ancestors, not from no traditional worshiping them. That's why I don't use that word. We don't worship our ancestors. They are us and we are them. They are part of the very fabric of our DNA and blood. You can't worship yourself. It's ridiculous. But people still want to use the traditional nonsense of and use ancestral worship. Your ancestors don't need to be worshiped. All you need to do is acknowledge them, okay, and connect with them as a tool and a guide for guidance. It's that simple. Because once you're able to communicate with your bloodline, that takes on a whole different perspective. And that is one of the things I do in the Red Magick mentorship program, is show people the correct way on the occult left-hand path, how to connect with your ancestors, eliminating all that traditional shit. Because again, we're living in a new day and time. Things are changing. The old ways and old paradigms do not work anymore. And I keep saying this, look what's going on in the world. I don't care what your personal spiritual dogma or belief is, they don't work, okay? There is no Jehovah, Allah, Yahweh, Elohim, Natiru, Orishi. None of them are coming to do anything for you. That's a fact. You can do all the prayers, you can do all the offerings and all the other tangible nonsense you want. The only thing that's going to change this is you understanding who you are, the power that you have in the universe, and how you can apply that power. If you don't understand that, again, you could keep spending your mind, your money, your effort, and your energy on these faith-based belief religions, and that's what they all are, regardless. Again, you're free to choose and do whatever you want, but I can tell you this: everybody to what's going on in the world now, and I'm not just talking about the coronavirus. Everything that's going on in the world now. I've been talking about this going back to the 90s, even before I was on any of these social media platforms. I kept mentioning years back, as the Earth gets closer to the sun, the level of consciousness changes on the planet, okay? This also has an effect internally within us. It affects our central sun, or we call this region the solar plexus, right? Because there's literally a fire or a light that burns within us. This sun or solar energy connects us to every aspect in the universe. Now, some people cannot absorb that consciousness. It makes them go crazy. Or some people who are making that transition along with the change are able to process it better. We're in that era. Some call it in metaphysics and quantum physics sun cycle or solar energy, right? They call it leaving one era or thinking the era of water, whether you want to call it Pisces and all that other astrological stuff. It's talking about the change that's happening within us all now. So it's deeper than just the coronavirus. Oh, one thing I wanted to throw out there quick, you'll see an announcement for it. Dr. Bynum will be back on the 20th, but that's going to be on Patreon for Patreon members. I'm going to put that out there. I forgot about that. I'm going to start bringing some of the guests on there in a more personalized setting. So he'll be back on the show. He's going to be talking about a lot of this because he's got a great, in my opinion, understanding. One thing I respect Dr. Bynum is he knows how to take the ancient information and technology and how to update it, how we should apply it and how it works for us in 2020. This is not about living in the past and holding on to an ancient culture, because then you're dead. Okay, that's the problem with a lot of us. We get into these conscious movements and we get on these conscious paths and we stay living in the past. That's not going to do anything for you. Just because you put on Egyptian clothing and Egyptian symbols, that don't make you an Egyptian. Just because you claim Ifa and wear an Ifa symbol, that don't make you that don't make you a practicing Ifa ancient practitioner from Nigeria. All right. And we need to understand this, because I say that because some of us are still living in the past and we're in denial. We think we're not. We think we're doing these things. But again, all I can say this, and if you are doing some of that stuff and getting results, power to you. But if you're not, it's all about the results. That's all I want to say. If you're still stuck like Chuck in a rut and you're not seeing no growth spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and yes, financially, because you can't lay claim to all these royal bloodlines and all these royal spiritual paths and be broke, because I ain't never seen a broke pharaoh. I never heard of a broke pharaoh. Okay. Show me where pharaohs were broke. Show me where there was poverty. I'm not saying poverty didn't exist in Egypt, because there was lower class, but poverty was very minimal because they had how to master and run society controlled. I'm saying, show me on any of these paths where they were poor, destitute, and struggling like majority or a lot of people are today. You should be a reflection of what it is you study and what you advocate and teach. If that doesn't transition in some shape, form, or fashion in your life, I'm sorry. I just can't really use your example, because it could be maybe the information you're teaching isn't wrong, but maybe you're not applying what you're talking about. So let me use this as an example. I'm not going to take health advice for somebody who's sick all the time, who's always got ailments and illnesses, but they want to give me advice on what herbs to take. You should be an example of that. I'm not talking about you ain't going to have no problems. You ain't going to have no issues, but I'm saying don't be all coughing and sickly all the time and something wrong with you, but you want to give health advice. Again, you must be an example of what it is you're teaching. So let's talk about the multiverses. The phenomenon of individual consciousness is not identifiable in a vacuum. And some people do that. They have tunnel vision. They try to stay in a comfortable path or situation where they can put everything in a nice, convenient compartment, and it's convenient for them. You can't do that with understanding the multiverses. For humans to recognize this facility, they must first become aware of an environment outside themselves, right? Then realize, if initially only passively, that they are severely something distinct from it. So you're more to than what you are acknowledging outside of yourself. I hope we all realize that. This would seem to be a simple and obvious juxtaposition, and so it is on a subconscious level. Humans go through their lives differentiating themselves from their surroundings and other humans in any number of habitual stimulus, task, response contexts. That's important to understand. Nevertheless, while these same humans are casually comfortable in apprehending the external environment, they are far less certain about and comfortable with perceiving and describing themselves as conscious individuals. And that's the problem I was just talking about earlier. People still are comfortable with connecting with all these external things outside of ourselves, right? But they are less certain and comfortable about being conscious individuals, right? We call being a conscious individual is now we're connecting to what we know on this path as the isolated consciousness of Set. You must retain individuality to understand how all things are connected. Now, people get confused when I say that. You hear all these spiritual paths teach about, oh, we're all one. Everything's connected. The universe is one. But they never really tell you how that works. They give you this false concept and illusion on how that works. It's not a practical method. They think we're all going to magically have the same ideology, thought, and perception on things, and then everybody's just going to be holding hands, kumbaya, running through grass fields, butt naked, singing Ave Maria. It don't work like that, because it'll never happen. One, we're tribal by blood. By the very blood that runs through our vein, we're going to have natural disagreements. Some people's energies and vibes just won't mesh, because it's something that goes back bloodline tribal. That's the physical, or that connects to the spiritual. That's one aspect, okay? In order to understand togetherness, you must step outside the box and observe that as an individual. That's hard for some people to grasp. And the isolated consciousness of Set teaches you that to understand, and this is, you gotta understand the paradigm of this, right? The duality of it. In order to understand that, you must separate from it. A left-hand path practitioner is not trying to become one with the universe. They're trying to separate from it so they can see how that functions. That's a hard concept for people to grasp because they still have these kumbaya mentalities. Peace and love, we're all going to unite. You know, we're all going to come together. No, certain groups and certain people are going to come together. If you think there's going to be a day and time where everybody's going to be on one accord, then you're foolish. It's just not a reality. I know there's a lot of dogmas, religions, philosophies that teach it. It's just not real. It's an illusion. All right. All right. Then it goes on to say, indeed, it is the confusion which is at the core of humanity's greatest discord. Among its species throughout its recorded history as surveyed herein. Put simply, until you are clear as to what you are and what you are not, and what these differentiations are, you cannot make an intelligent decision concerning your behavior and its rationale. Let me say that again. Until you are conscious or clear as to what you are and what you are not. See, people have not taken the time to do that distinction. This is why I've been talking about for years to understand the triad of self, as I've called it, right? There is who you're trying to portray yourself as, who you want people to see who you are, and 3, which is who you really are. That's the only one that matters, okay? I've been saying that shit for years because you know what's gonna happen? Who you really are is gonna manifest at some point. Now, you can make that happen smoothly by working with yourself via shadow work, by doing the work you need to do on yourself to get yourself right, or you can just resist it. And with that resistance, persistence is going to prevail at some point. And usually when it gets to that point, things start to explode in individuals' life. Things start to go amok. Things get out of hand, out of control. Everything gets turned upside down because of what it's saying here. Until, again, you are clear as to what you are and what you are not. So what I was saying earlier, just because you wear Egyptian clothing doesn't mean you're an Egyptian. You are not. That's not what you are. That's what you think you are. Connecting with the ideology and the spiritual aspect, that's one thing. But some people have created this illusion because they say Hotep or they say Alafia, right? In their minds, they think that they're connected to these ancient cultures in Africa and Egypt. And here's the funny thing. If most American who grasp these spiritual doctrines go over there today, they're not even accepted. They look at Americans as converts to their way of life, the same way the Arabs do with Islam, right? Because Americans are so busy trying to be everything else than what they are, okay? And as I said before, there's traditions that have their roots here in high levels of spirituality that nobody focuses on. Look at the high spiritual doctrine of the various Native American tribes that controlled all these lands that we call America. Look at the black magic and voodoo practitioners that came in through New Orleans, right? That don't practice the conventional, traditional way, right? Why is it Americans want to connect with everything else except from where they're from? I don't care. We all know if we go back several generations, we're not from here. But if you were born and raised in America, hate to bust your bubble, you're American. I don't give a shit where your parents are from. My parents and my grandparents are not from America, but I'm born and raised in America. I'm American. You were raised in American society. Whatever you classify that as, it's irrelevant. I don't even need to get into that back and forth semantics. But we've been programmed and indoctrinated to think we're something we're not. Because in our minds, we're here in America, we want to play this and that. But if we go to those countries, we're not even accepted on a real level there because they're going to look at us as American converts to their spiritual path or way of life. And I'm telling you this from traveling and experience. That's how it's perceived. If you've never been over there and you disagree with what I'm saying, then travel over there and find out for yourself. I've seen the racism in Islam years back. And they look at an American that goes to make Hajj or pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia, or if you travel anywhere in the Middle East, it's almost like entertaining to them, okay? It's almost like, oh, this is kind of, you know, oh, you're a convert to our way of life. You're never accepted, you know, as an official. I don't care what they tell you on the surface. And if you look at most of, even in Islam in America, look at most of the masjids. They're run by Persians, Pakistanians, Arabs. They have a control on it. Even if there's American imams out in front. Yeah, you say, well, I've been to masjids. They have American imams leading salat. Yeah, they might. They get some power. But I'm saying on a wide scale level, it's still Arab religion controlled by Arabs. And we still have Americans who want to fight and argue over it as if they need some form of acceptance. Again, we need to stop what it says here, trying to not understand who we really are and get sucked into the illusion. Because until it's clear, again, to who you really are, you won't have no understanding of this, okay? So let's continue. And what these differentiations are, you cannot make an intelligent decision or behavior in its rationale. That's where we left off. While this might sound daunting at first glance, the stuff of turgid theological puffery or excruciating graduate philosophy courses, it is actually quite obvious and straightforward. All you have to do is to confront it openly and honestly, which is exactly what this book, Mind Star, seeks to facilitate. For starters, the odds are that if the ordinary human were asked how many universes are there, the confident answer would be one, and that's false, right? The word universe, the word uni, it's the Greek word, it means one. We know there are a multitude of universes, or as we call them, the multiverse. When you tap into the power of your subjective mind, you have the ability. This is why we say when you go into the void or the abyss or the deep, dark aspects of your subconscious mind, there is no limitations. There is no boundaries. There's no parameters. There's no beginnings. There's no end. It's limitless, right? Our existence is in cycles. Religion tricked us with a beginning and an end, right? But then they screw with your head and say this being Melchizedek was the Ancient of Days. No, he has no mother, no father, no beginning, no end. But then they say Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, which means the beginning and the end. Is it referring to a literal beginning or end? It can't be, because later in the book of Revelations, it talks about this earth being destroyed and this heaven being destroyed, as it was mentioned in that time, in a new heaven and a new earth being created. And I did a video a while back. Is there such thing as the end? No, everything is in cycles. You're under the illusion that there's a beginning and an end. You were birthed into this universe physically through a cycle that you're living through right now. And guess what? We're living in a day and time where we're seeing a cycle end and a new one begin, and you just happen to be alive to witness it. Hence, explaining all the confusion going on in the world right now. You're here. That time period back then, or this period that the ancestors were telling us would come, the great change in the climate, all these climatic and cataclysmic events, these spiritual events, the shifting of the constellation and the star, all these things that were recorded in these ancient texts. You are alive and living and witnessing this shit now. The great change that they were talking about then is happening right now. Some see it, some get it, some understand it, and they're working with it. The ones that aren't are getting sucked into all this confusion, okay? And it all starts with understanding who you really are and who you're really not. When you feel the need to identify with a title, you're confused. And this is the problem. Everybody wants to put titles on us. They want you to identify yourself so their insecurities can feel comfortable. So when you say you're a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, I practice Santeria, Ifa, that's, convenient and it's comfortable. They can put you in a box. But when you say none of those things define me, I am all of those things, they are all me, and I vibrate outside that title, they're like, what the fuck is that? So what are you? What are you into? I love it. Do you believe in God? What's your spirituality? That shit kills me, that question, because it shows me subconsciously the insecurity and the fears in the individual that's asking the question. So you need me to give you a title to make you feel comfortable. And that's why I told you, I'm not really big on even using the title left-hand path, because that term has gotten used and abused over the years. Because most people think the term left-hand path is exclusive to European practitioners, and it's not. It actually has its origin with the ancient Dravidians of India who were from Africa. It's actually a term that goes back to ancient African culture. Most people don't know that. but it's gotten grafted and watered down in modern age times. People who are ignorant hear left-hand path and they think it's dealing with Church of Satan and European Satanism, and it goes much further than that. That's why I like to use the term the path of self-mastery, because it doesn't put you in a box with all those things. Left-hand path in the sense that it's not the norm, it's non-conformist. All of this is part of understanding who you really are and who you're really not, okay? And know this, the symbols, the spiritual paths predate all these modern day cultures that have came along in the last hundreds of thousands of years. This symbol here, the Leviathan symbol. Leviathan ties you back to the original primordial chaotic energy when there was no form and void in what we know as our universe. There's nothing more older than that, okay? Because then there's a group of people that like to put timelines on everything. Oh, they want historical data, which to me gets very, stupid after a while. But the path that we connect with, the energy that we connect with, the systems that we work really have no point of time frame you can put on them. We're connecting with the very fabric that we emerged from. How much further back can you go if you're stuck in that mindset? All right. That's what Leviathan represents, the primordial chaotic energy, right? So we have to establish that. Now let's shift, and I'm going to get to your questions and your comments in the chat. I just want to get through this. It's only a couple of pages. I'll get through it as quick as I can. Let's talk about the objective universe. The objective universe is what most humans are accustomed to, regarded as only the universe. The objective is the physical. And as I said many times over the years, this is where I think a lot of the Kemetic schools of thought go wrong, because they push Ma'at. You must understand Ma'at. Everything is Ma'at. The principles of Ma'at. Now, I've said a million times before, Ma'at are the principles that govern the objective realm. The 7 principles or Hermetic principles of Tahuti are the principles that govern the subjective realm. You really, truly can't have harmony between your objective and your subjective if you do not understand the Hermetic principles of Tahuti. You know, I've been a big practitioner of that for years. I've been pushing that for years. I've been encouraging people to study and master that because it's going to help you with your magic. It's going to help you with your path. But again, people want to get back into the objective stuff. And you're going to see this portion here is what most people's problem is. All right. They are accustomed to this as the only universe, the totality of matter and energy and existence, of which these same humans would just assume themselves to be components. The God-devil creation concept, that you are inferior to some force or some being that exists outside of you that controls you. You are just a component of that. So therefore, you are accepting that you are a victim to those circumstances. And you are also accepting you have no control over your life. And everything that happens or is done is dictated by these beings that vibrate outside yourself. It's no different if you have that same mentality in Ifa, Santeria, Kemetic studies. And that's not just exclusive to Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, because people in these, quote unquote, who they think are these high areas of spiritual study still approach it from an objective perspective. Okay. This is the problem. Okay. This is a huge problem. Okay. And this is why perception is huge in understanding this. And I told you to really understand real truth. Truth is personal. I did a video a while back, went over everybody's head. Is there such thing as one universal truth? Answer is no. The reason why is because based on our perception of what truth is going to vary from individual to individual. I'm talking about personal truth. Yeah, 1 + 1 is 2. We're not talking about basic common sense truth. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the concept of one determines right or wrong. That's what I'm talking about. Right or wrong is personal perspective and perception on your understanding. If you don't get that, you'll be stuck like Chuck in this objective realm, right? Humans are aware of the objective universe because they bump into it all the time. From stubbing one's toe to examining galaxies through telescopes, this surrounding is so constant and pervasive that they are physically and psychologically addicted to it. The physical, the tangible things, right? Removing such constant sensory reinforcement normally produces disorientation followed by panic and insanity.
For the vast majority of humanity, ironically, it is thus the impress of the objective universe upon them which provides and reinforces their individuality. So this is their understanding. They only can grasp their experiences through the objective universe. Hence, these are your people who are stuck in physical religions and dogmas. They can't fathom the power of their mind. They don't understand what it means to tap into the isolated consciousness and be an individual, right? That's what the birth of Set represented. Set ripped himself from the womb of his mother Nut. What does that mean to us as left-hand path practitioners? Set was, from the very beginning of his birth into this universe, wanted to lay claim to that individuality to the point where he couldn't even wait out the birth process. He did not want to be conformed or constricted to anything. That should be one of our goals on this path, all right? Humans have gradually realized that their objective universe is not chaotic and haphazard. Remember, we've talked about many times before. If you don't know how to make chaos is not a bad thing when you don't know how to make, it's bad when you can't make order out of your chaos, then it can consume you. You become a victim of your own circumstances based on what you embrace and accept as your reality. All right, let me give you an example. You are your thoughts. You become your thoughts. What you think tends to happen to you. People start out on working projects or trying to accomplish a specific goal, but then they defeat themselves before they even begin, right? They're going through the process and they got thoughts running through their mind. I'm going to fail. Something is going to go wrong. This is going to happen. I don't know what. And then it does. You become your thoughts. That's not the same thing as sensing something coming and you see it because there's stuff laying out in front of you, whether it's a vision, whether it's signs, it's data, it's information. That's different. When you have factual signs in front of you where you can see what's taking place, that's different. I'm talking about the person, we call them the negative Nellies, right? They're constantly thinking negative thoughts. This is what this is talking about, right? It exists and functions according to inflexible regularities, normally known as natural or as they are discovered scientific laws. In prehistoric and primitive cultures, before such laws were known to exist and thus be inflexible, the objective universe was assumed to be a variable at the manipulative whim of gods/God, and considerable effort was devoted to worshiping or appeasing such entities to prevent natural disasters or cataclysms. I was just talking about that, right? You can pray to all the gods and goddesses you want. You can't change the course that nature is going to take. There's a difference of aligning yourself with nature. For an example, when cataclysms, natural disasters come, you line yourself up with an energy that represents that force in nature. So what tends to happen is nature's still going to do its thing, but if you align itself with its energy, then you can protect yourself in the sense that you won't suffer direct destruction from it. People have a hard time understanding it. Set is the god of storms and chaos. Great deity to work with when hurricanes and natural weather disasters are coming through. There's ritual work you can do. There's a difference with working along with nature. You can't fight nature. You won't win that battle, okay? And nature has proven that regardless of your spiritual path. Because when a tornado or a hurricane rips through, it doesn't see race, and it sure as hell don't see religion. Churches, masjids get torn up. Buddhist temples have gotten ripped apart. It don't care what it floods out. It doesn't look. And please, people, stop this stupid shit when hurricanes come. It's taking the path of the slave ships. Please stop this dumb shit. I hate when I hear people say that because I can show you 1 million black neighborhoods that got destroyed by hurricanes. We can go to New Orleans, okay? So the spirits of the slaves were not protecting black people in New Orleans. I can show you the devastation of many hurricanes here in Florida where many black people got affected. Go back to Hurricane Andrew in 92 in Homestead. You can go back to recent hurricanes in the last 5 to 10 years. Stop this nonsense. That's that foolishness, okay? Of course, the hurricanes are going to take path of the slaves because they all have their point of origin of Africa when they come from the Atlantic. But what about the ones that come from the Pacific? Okay, use common sense. We got to stop this dumb ideology, this dumb way of thinking. Natural disasters do not see color, race, religion, none of that shit. That's why I said nature's going to do its thing. Get out of the way. Work with it. Don't try to fight it because you ain't going to win that battle. Trust me when I tell you, you are not going to win that battle. Yeah, just to see that quick comment there, it caught my eye. Nexus 66, the Bahamas recently. Perfect example. A few years back, look at a terrible earthquake in Haiti, right? So were the slaves protecting Haiti, who are direct descendants of the West Africans? No. Stop the nonsense. Stop falling for that crutch you need to lean on to feel comfortable. Nature knows no color. All nature knows, I'm getting ready to clean shit up, and if you're in the path, sorry to say, it's going to take that path of destruction. Nature's going to do what it got to do to rid itself of its sickness. Your body does the same thing when you get a flu, when you get a bacterial infection, right? It tries to fight it off. It's the natural mechanism of the laws of the universe and how they work. Thing is, people want to fight with nature. They want to try to go against nature. And you can't understand nature if you don't understand yourself, right? We talk about the micro and the macrocosm. I don't think most people really understand what that is. This is important, all right? All right. Of course, there are enough random interactions of natural laws to lend credence to divine intervention. Explanations, particularly when preached to ignorant masses, right? Now we're talking about the people who use religion. As I said before, Christianity loves to use biblical quotes when there's crazy shit going on in the world. And it's very easy to pick a verse out and now use this ignorance as an explanation because you don't want to take the time to investigate further and get the real understanding, right? Conventional questions concerning the objective universe include, yeah, this is important, and I would assume these are some of the reasons why we're on this path, I would hope. How did it come into being? Why is it organized as it is? Who created natural law? I always hear people say this, oh, there's natural law, right? And then they say there's natural law and universal law, right? And then they fuck up and they try to give that credence to some spiritual deity in Santeria or Ifa or Egypt. And now you just destroyed what it's really trying to say. So there's natural law, some will say there's universal law, but then they'll try to say it's governed by a particular deity. When the deities just represent an aspect of what they represent in nature, not to be connect with as if they're going to intervene for you to fix something. It's for you to connect with the energy to get the inner understanding of what this all represents and what it means to you. There's a difference. So this, I hope I'm not losing nobody here because I know this is not the most easiest subject to grasp because it's not talking about the tangible things. But this is what real black magic is about. This is what understanding what this path is really about. And not everybody likes to go there because they like all the physical, tangible shit. All right? All right. Okay, so we left off, who created natural law? We left out there. Why is natural law so completely and permanently enforced? Does the objective universe have a purpose, or is it just a gigantic accident? And of course, what is or should be humanity's relationship to the objective universe? This is where I think people struggle. Ask yourself, we're going to continue on and get the answers to some of this and talk about it. What is your relationship with the objective universe? Are you straight up religious, and do you rely on every aspect of your OU or objective universe, which some people do, unfortunately? These are your religious people who worship external things, who think there's an external force that's going to fix all their problems if they pray to them and grovel in front of them and ask and petition them to do favors for them. Okay? That's not how it works. Okay? Obviously, humanity has been accustomed to addressing, if not answering, many of these questions by religious myth. And we just went through all that. That's people's understanding of this through religious myth. What is myth? Has root in the word mythology. And remember, the mythologies, whether you're talking about ancient Egypt, whether you're talking about Ifa in Nigeria, the mythologies were externalized so the individual could connect to it, so they knew what they were talking about, which was really what takes place on the inside, the internal war we struggle and fight with within ourselves on a daily basis. They conceptualized that by breaking down deities in relationship to different aspects of nature, and they all had a connection to a certain level of consciousness. This is why we say Shango resides within the psyche. It represents the warrior mindset when one needs to access it. So we're not worshiping Shango, we're trying to become a Shango when need be, right? That's just one. That's the difference. So we're not looking at the mythology literally because we believe like the mythology of the Bible, like Christians or Muslims believe in the Quran, or the Jews in their Torah, that it's literal. This is where the confusion starts. And this is how men were able to take these things and translate these scriptures and start these monotheistic religions to enslave the masses. This is how this all has its function. So we don't deal with the myth, right? We understand what the myth represents, all right? It is easier for the ordinary mind to visualize a God impulsively snapping the OU into existence at a chosen point in time, for example, than to grapple with the fact that it has always existed. No creative act was therefore needed. So that's where people get stumped. It's easier for them to believe, poof, somebody snapped their fingers and poof, everything just appeared. When the very Bible don't even teach that. The Bible says it took 7 days. I always pose the questions, well, really 6. And why did this God have to rest on the 7 days? And if he's omnipresent, omnipotent, and all powerful, why couldn't he just snap his fingers and poof, everything appeared? So now the question comes into play, what God are we talking about that created this, right? Ask yourself that question. 6 days, and then obviously he was gassed and tired. He had to rest on the 7th day. That doesn't make any damn sense, okay? But certain individuals would believe that nonsense before understanding. They can't phantom when they say this has always existed. Leviathan, primordial chaos, right? Where all things emerge from. You can't understand it because you're trying to conceptualize it by defining it by person, place, or thing. That's why you struggle with it. So if you can't put it in the parameters of person, place, or thing, the individual who can't, they struggle with understanding that. So it's easy to believe that there's some deity or deities that come from some dimension outside of the planet Earth that are controlling all this. It's easier for you to accept that. And that's just not the reality. I'm sorry. All right. As for natural law, human science has no idea why it is, or what enforces it. Science contents itself with discovering and codifying such law as it is, period. Concerning humanity's relationship to the OU, this is examined in some historical detail in this book's discussion of Teleos, which we won't go into that. All right. I got three more short sections. Three more. 2 more pages, really, and then we'll go to the chat and finish up. Let's talk about the subjective universe. So we need to understand that part of how the objective and how we connect with the objective universe can limit us. All right. So when you hear me now talk about, I'm not just saying it to say it, that we must do away with all the old paradigms and traditional systems of belief. This is why I'm saying it. Because until you do it, you will never get an understanding of your potential. You will never fully grasp of what you're destined and capable of being. It doesn't mean you can't get some results, but you'll be stuck at a certain point and you cut yourself off from everything that you have the ability to connect with. Okay? It's important to understand that. The subjective universe, all right? The subjective universe, in each self-conscious being's perception of the objective universe, blended with personally generated overlays, selective impressions, and creative imagination as instinctive, indoctrinated, inspired, and/or initiated. Thus, not even the most controlled physical scientist can claim to accurately and completely see the objective universe. What he sees is his filtration and distortion of it through his subjective universe, right? Which he has built up both consciously and subconsciously from innumerable sources since birth. This is why I say for years, you can't force somebody to accept your subjective experience. It's personal, based on what it says there. You have shaped this subjective universe and you have built it up consciously and subconsciously from the very point or origin of your birth. From what? From your experiences, what you've exposed yourself to, what you studied. So people that follow religions and leaders and gurus who are sharing with you their subjective experience, and they're telling you, look, I communicate with aliens and beings beyond the stars, or I had this experience, and they want you to agree with it or you co-sign with it, you're guilty of what it says here. Okay? It don't mean the person can't share their experiences, but I'm not interested in who can communicate with aliens. I couldn't give two shits. I'm not interested who gets downloads from spirits and ancestors. That's personal. People that usually got to constantly say that shit all the time, there's usually an agenda or a twist. And that's why if you look at the history of this channel going back since the first day of its inception, one, I don't talk about that a lot. You'll hear me talk about it here and there when it's in relation to a topic that I'm talking about. So it just depends if it can connect. Two, people always ask, why do I keep the comments turned off on all my videos? One, because I don't want to deal with the aggravation and nonsense. And two, then people start getting spooky with their comments. I don't got time for that. I'm not interested. And again, don't take it personal. I'm not interested in I had a dream. We had a lot of people that had, I have a dream people, or I saw this or that, because I've watched it on other platforms get comical. And this is not about feeding one's ego. This is about sharing and assimilating information so we can grow. Now, as I said many times before with this channel, I'm not interested in if you agree or disagree with what I say. That's irrelevant to me. Because when these cameras turn off, I ain't losing no sleep over that. I don't care if you love or like me. That's irrelevant. I don't give two shits about that. Okay? This is information. Are you going to agree with it all? Absolutely not. I'd be foolish to think that. This is about what you do with it. That's your business. I'm not interested in your personal opinions, likes or dislikes. That's personal. That's something you will have to wrestle with. All right? Hold on one second. Let me get this up and running. Hold on. 1 second. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna stop that there. Hold on. Things acting funky. I'll watch it. We got some bad weather here, so hopefully we don't get no problems with the internet connection. All right. So where did we leave off here? Okay, the subjective. Oh, that still loads. Okay. So this goes back to your understanding of it, goes back to the very point of your birth. And I've said that many times before. More creative, artistic, mystical, etc. personalities may let their subjective universes run even more freely, to the point where the objective universe is only of occasional and necessary relevance to them. These are your spooky ass people, right? These are your people who think, oh, everything is an illusion. They're so disconnected because the subjective and the objective interaction in the next section will clarify this. Everything is subjective and spiritual. They control everything. Everything's an illusion. Nothing is a reality. They talk to fucking aliens. They think they're aliens. They think they're an incarnation of this. They think they're this, as far as this dogma. Everything is subjective. There's no harmony between the OU and the SU, because these are the people that have swayed too far to the subjective side. And as I said before, if you are one of those people, I mentioned a couple of weeks back, if this world is an illusion to you, please, the next time we meet face to face, please tell me that. And please let me punch you dead in your mouth. You shouldn't feel any pain. You won't lose any teeth, because this world is an illusion and you control it. So I can't hurt you. I guarantee you, once I cold clock you upside your head, you will be in some pain. And I can tell you, if you try to retaliate back, I'm not stupid enough. I will defend myself, because I know I would feel the same pain. Understand the interaction that exists between both. And I'm waiting for the first person to approach me with that. They haven't yet. Tell me this is an illusion. And I'll say, stand there. Let me punch you dead in your shit. You ain't going to feel it. Better yet, you should be able to stop me if it's an illusion, because I'm an illusion. I guarantee you, when them fists start flying, that illusion shit's going to go right out the window. Trust me when I tell you. You're going to feel it. Trust me. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Wait a second here. I'll just put the title later. I'll change this later when I got more time. There we go. All right, I'm gonna go back live in a second. I'm coming back on Instagram for you people that got disconnected. I'll put titles in later. All right, so we need to understand that, all right? And I've said this for years, you could sway too much to one side than the other, okay? It goes both ways. Unfortunately, we have a lot of that shit going on right now, a lot, okay? There's so many, it's ridiculous. Anyway, you get the point, not to waste too much time on it. More creative, artistical, this is where we left off. If some such persons reach a stage where their subjective universe have completely replaced the objective universe, they may be called insane. In this sense, sanity is a measure of an individual's suppression of his subjective universe with socially sanctioned boundaries. Okay? So again, let me say this again. Someone who completely replaces their objective universe with their subjective will now be labeled insane because they don't have that harmony between the both. Okay? Now, in their mind, they're going to think that they're 100% right. And it's not that they're not having a subjective experience. That's not in question. But what they're not understanding, how that differentiates and how that interacts with their objective universe. And then it can get more fuckery because then they want other people to co-sign on that shit. And I love when people co-sign on it. Like, really? That's where we're going with this. Hence, we have the birth of dogmas, philosophies, religions, guru, and followers. Anybody that accepts and embraces that mentality or mindset is a follower. Hate to bust your bubble. Okay? Because again, it goes back to the principle. Nobody's going to do shit for you but you. Okay? All right, two last sections. The subjective-objective interaction. I've talked about this for years as harmony between your subjective and your objective realm. Here's the struggle that most people face on this path. One, because of the aforementioned we just talked about, it's hard for them to understand and differentiate between the two. It's hard for them to understand their connection and what defines them, especially in the objective. It's hard for them to grasp who they really are as opposed to what they think they are, as we mentioned earlier. So this is the struggle. Let's talk a little bit about it. Once the simultaneous and permanent existence of the objective and subjective universe is recognized, much of the mystery of human history and behavior is no longer mysterious. So you're not stuck in dogmas, religions, and philosophies, and faith and belief systems when you have that harmony or positive personal interaction between your objective and subjective. It just requires examination of each such individual group and or event to identify the applicable objective universe forces and the various individual subjective universes through which they are being perceived and influenced, both subconsciously and consciously. This is important. At the subconscious level, for instance, an individual may assume that everyone else sees the same reality that he does, when in fact this is never completely the case. Well, I talked about how people want you to co-sign on their subjective universe. I had this experience. I talked to some being from beyond the stars, or I'm this or that. And they want you to go, okay, really? Well, that's powerful. That's deep. That's what this is talking about. That's a sickness. And usually it's not even so much the people who are trying to get you to co-sign. It's the individuals who are co-signing and agreeing to that. It shows how mentally weak they are. And it shows their lack of understanding of who and what they are. Because everybody has the same ability. But we need to understand how to facilitate the understanding of that ability. So this is what this is talking about. You can't expect everybody to see the same reality that you see. You'd be a fool to think so. Okay? Because it's personal. At the conscious level, the subjective universe can be both easier and more problematic to handle. Easier to the extent that the individual is making willful decisions about how much of his subjective universe he can successfully apply. So be real, understand that interaction. Don't go around like everything's an illusion. I created this reality. I have a lot of questions for you. If you are, it's not to be judgmental. If you're Joe Blow working as a cashier at McDonald's, that's the reality you created for yourself? If you have that all power, why didn't you make yourself a super pimp? Lay it in riches and harems of hoes. If you create your own reality, I'm just saying, I just can't see creating a reality. And would anybody want to create a reality of living in the midst of a pandemic? Ask yourself the question. Do you really understand what's going on around you right now? Or are you trapped by what's going on around you right now? It's two different things. Okay, so be careful, careful. All right, more problematic insofar as others with their differing subconscious and conscious subjective universe may be present and involved, okay? All right, the last section I want to go through, and then we'll take some questions. I hope you're understanding this. This is important, because if all is mental, mental is all, and everything in the universe is mental, the first principle of Tahuti, or the Hermetic principles, you're getting your breakdown and thorough understanding of it from an occult left-hand path perspective. Okay, this is what this path is really about. This work. This is deeper than just altars and skulls and pentagrams, and I love that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I love the full-blown occult left-hand path ritual. I love the imagery of it. I love the vibration and energy of it. That's important to your ritual work. But I want to really show you, in essence, it goes beyond all that. The real skilled magician doesn't really need any of that stuff. Can apply this at all times and at all points in their life. Remember, I keep saying, this is not a fad. This is not a thing you do because it's in. This is a way of life. I take this as a way of life. This is a practice of how I live and lead my life. I look at this as a way of life, not a religion, not a dogma, not something that's cool to do. No, this is a personal path of self-mastery. This is how we need to approach this. All right, the last section, short section, the collective subjective universe. When more than one subjective universe is present and involved in any society or problem situation, it should be obvious that no two of them will coincide, both in terms of subconscious reality perception and conscious values, desires, and actions apply. That's why I was talking the unity stuff earlier. Everybody's perception is different. This is why that won't happen. Even everybody's subjective experiences, as it's saying here, are different. They're not going to completely coincide and mesh because it's personal. Why? Because you built, created, and destroyed these from the very moment you were birthed into the universe based on your experiences, what you've been exposed to, and your upbringing. Sometimes your cultural and ethnicity background has an effect on that understanding. These are all factors to understand. So it's impossible for that to happen. Impossible in the sense to believe everybody's going to have the same understanding. That's just not reality. All right. Hence, both human society and human history is most accurately understood as attempts by the involved humans to reconcile their conflicting subjective universes into one or more community-approved collective subjective universes. Hereafter, collective subjective universes. These are all your groups and organizations that want to teach their one dogma as the eternal truth, and anything outside of it is false. These are your cult and groups and your Black Hebrew Israelites, your Nation of Islam, your Nuwapians, any of your groups that have the David Koreshes, the Jim Jones, any of your groups that have some cult leader over it that has an ideology that must be universally accepted as the truth, and they are the supreme leader over it. That's what this shit is talking about. That sickness, I said the day of the conscious pimp or pimptress is over. Anybody that still falls for that okie dokie got a long way to go. I don't bow down, acknowledge anybody as superior to me. Fuck that. You can kiss my ass. I ain't acknowledging nothing outside of myself, because I'd be a fool to do that. Because the only thing that is real is me, and everything that proceeds from me and what I've experienced is only a reality to me. Okay? And if you accept anything else outside of that in your experience, then you are stuck like Chuck too. You are stuck in blind faith and belief. Bow down to no one. Accept nobody as inferior to you. Accept nobody as superior to you. You are the sole governor and ruler of your sovereignty. Okay? That's bottom line. And if you have a hard time understanding that, you're going to get stuck like Chuck. All right? All right. let's finish, almost there, and then I'll take some questions to wrap it up. I still got about 45 minutes. We'll try to end this at 7 o'clock. All right. Where did I leave off? Okay. Sometimes this is possible through peaceful means such as education, reasoning, or argument. In other instances where conscious subjective universes are too passionate, or when subconscious subjective universes are too inflexible and intolerant, the individual/groups may resort to coercion. You see this all the time. Aggressive and intensive indoctrination, conditioning, and reinforcement. Then, if you don't accept what they're saying or how they teach it, then there's these repercussions that follow it, right? They always got some explanation to justify it. Or they'll launch an attack on you because you don't see it the way that they see it, because you have a difference of an opinion, or you don't have the right to disagree and have your own thoughts. And I say to that, that's what I say to that. All right. Okay. And then here, this is even important. Okay. Aggressive and intensive indoctrination, conditioning, and reinforcement, along with the suppression or extermination of the offending competitors to achieve the desired reality, right? Can't be no competition out there. In modern society, unsurprisingly, such coercion and intolerance are invariably attributed to the enemy, domestic outlaws, insurgents, revolutionaries, or other alien individual or groups. It is assumed without any need for argument or justification that the community or the collective subjective universe into which its members have been conditioned since birth is not just one among many options, but it is reality. We call this cognitive dissonance. Somebody who's so enwrapped in a dogma that you could smack them upside the head with basic facts and they just don't see it, because they've been so indoctrinated with this collective subjective understanding that they can't see just basic everyday common sense. That's what this is talking about, right? Questioning it thus goes beyond acceptable. Curiosity, it's heresy, or treason, or insanity, or you're a traitor, or you ain't down with the cause, or, we heard all the games. This was most famously caricatured in George Orwell's novel 1984, in which failure to accept the party's collective subjective universe, not just as the conscious, but the subconscious reality level, was condemned as the worst of all possible sins, thought crime, correspondingly requiring not just punishment, but curing by destroying the offender's ability to see reality other than through the party's collective subjective universe. All right, so you must have that harmony and that connection between the subjective and the objective. I think that spoke for itself. Hopefully, you get that understanding. So what I want to do, that basically covers the material I wanted to go over. I now want to kind of go through the chat. Excuse me. And see what kind of questions and comments we have, time permitting. Greetings, if I didn't, Kami, Bakuma, no Ryoki, hopefully I didn't butcher your name. Hello to you, Sperlin Lily, what's going on, brother? We have to set up our call for this week. I'll be in contact with you either today or tomorrow. We need to get that set up. Sopor77, are altars a form of alchemy where you project yourself onto it? For example, a Bovita. At what point does one no longer need physical tools to enact change within the psyche? That's a very good question. And I don't know if you're still here. I did just elaborate on that not too long ago. Altars, now again, Bovita is what the term they use in Spiritism for your spirit or your ancestral altar, right? You're always projecting yourself onto it, because remember, the altars, the icons, the symbols, the tools, and everything that's on any working altar is supposed to activate. They're tools or symbols that activate portions of your psyche. So I've always said, I've talked many times before, and people have asked to do a part 2 on that class. I did a whole thing on the Patreon for those that are members, how to set up altars. There's geometrical structures to altars. I've set my altars up like that for years. They're set and designed and created a certain way. When I'm facing them, not only do they geometrically through science project certain levels of understanding and consciousness, because they're set up via certain cardinal points, directions, horizontals, angles. in addition to what the icons and the consciousness of it represents. So the point as far as when you don't need them is you never really need them, because you can create the images in your own mind of how you want to connect with any of it, right? Because the word image, we know, has root in the word imagination. The imagination is just a polite term for how you create things subjectively. So now, as far as when an individual is on their path, they have to determine when they feel like they're at a skilled point, when it's not necessary. Now, some people have the gift out the gate. I have one student who works all his rituals from a mental aspect, has created mental altars. Some people do that. I like the combination of both, because I think, again, into the last part, it connects the objective and the subjective. So my altar is always designed, when I look at it, these are things that I gravitate towards in my subjective realm. I build altars based on that. When I'm laying the design out of my altar, when I'm connecting with certain archetypes, this is what's going on in here. I don't just like to put shit together because it looks good, or I like this, or I like that, or that looks dark and whatever. Excuse me, that's nice, but it should also have a subjective experience. So in essence, here's the deep thing to your question. You are projecting yourself on your altar, because what you're physically creating is confirmation of what's going inside here. So when you're laying out your altar, you are confessing your thoughts and understanding. If you're creating an altar and you have Set on it and Lucifer and its design, you are really expressing your understanding of what's going on in here. And then through your rituals, you're showing how you connect with it or projecting yourself. Now, one can do that just with the understanding of those concepts within their subjective. So by all means, no, you don't need it, because it's going to change the psyche just by your understanding and how you connect with it subjectively. But I think the bigger question is, at what point can the skilled magician get to that point? Some can right out the gate. Some it takes a little bit longer, based, again, on their understanding and perception of what this path is about. So it's a very good question, but there's levels and varying degrees of understanding to that based on the individual. It's going to come quicker for others, and it's going to take a lot longer from others. But that's a very good question. All right, what else we got? Just in time. Infernal greetings, brother. Lenore Ari. Well. What's going on? All right. Shout out to Blair, Patra. All right, everybody else, just to save time, if I didn't greet you personally. Brother Duma. Oh, let me just shout out Brother Duma. I haven't done it in a while. The brother you see in the chat, who goes by the name, I call him Duma for short, Duma Ken Rez. I've many times mentioned the brother. Get with him. He makes occult jewelry. He has 70 pieces. He does great work. He can create pretty much any piece you want. He's done Holy Death pieces. He's done Lucifer pieces, Kali, whatever it is you're looking for. I highly recommend the brother. He does good work. Inbox him. Check him out. He could put together some good pieces for you. Raven, who is also in the chat room, she's been on the show many times. You guys all well know who she is. She has her, you can inbox her. She offers a lot of essential oils, herbal soaps, candles. Get with her. I'm going to go through if there's anybody else in here that's been on the show connected. Connect with these people, because they have good products. They've been on the show before in the past. Matter of fact, Brother Duma, I'm going to get with you to come on the next show. Do a brief interview in the beginning. Maybe you can come on live and talk about your products. We're going to do that. If you're listening, type in the next one. I'm going to bring you in live. Maybe you can introduce yourself to the people, and then maybe you can show some of your pieces so people could see it. So let's set that up. Well, I'll get with you after this, or inbox me afterwards. But reach out to these people. They got good products. I've used some of them myself, and I can attest to them. So you can inbox either one of them, and I'm sure they'll send you contact information. All right. But that was a good question. What else we got? Serpent-headed mask. Yes, and Patrick's correct. It's ancestral veneration. Good point. Not worship. We don't worship our ancestors. If you came late, That's not an approach you want to use on this path. You are them, they are you. You can't worship who you are by blood. Okay? We venerate them through acknowledgement. We use them as a communication tool that connects with our personal daemon or higher self. One of the differences we do on the left-hand path, when we connect with our ancestors, there's an invocation to our personal daemon first. Other paths don't do that because we know it's one of the bridges that connects us to our higher self. Okay, so we have a whole different approach of how we do that. But good point. Serpent-headed Mass asks, can an ancestor altar be a people now gone that are not blood related? Yes and no. One, you have two things we need to understand. There's bloodline ancestral beings and there's ancestral spirit guides that are not blood related. So yes, the question to you, you uncover that in your work. You do have ancestral spirit guides that have either walked with you through generations of your genealogy or that could connect with you in the current existence. So technically they are not related by blood. They are ancestral because they go back genealogy wise. You sometimes find they have been in the genealogy with other past family members. So yes. Now, when you're specifically doing work for your bloodline ancestors, you shouldn't include in invocations or ritualistic work others that are not connected to you by blood. Then the other question comes up, what if you were adopted? Or what if you grew up with a childhood friend who you were raised with and you pretty much live up and grew around with them? Yes, you can include them on your altar because there's that spiritual connection. It's not the same as just some friend or a distant uncle that you didn't really know and you don't have an established relationship with them. I don't even encourage people to really connect with any ancestors that they don't really when they were here anyway, had an established relationship. Include them in your work, but to a certain degree. So I'm saying, what is more beneficial? Say that adopted brother, sister, or sibling or parent that you came under, or a distant uncle that you know of but didn't have any established relationship, or auntie or whatever. You're going to have more of a spiritual connection, the bond that was grown with the individual, quote unquote, that may not have been by bloodline. That comes up a lot with people who are adopted or didn't know their parents. There's a certain way to address and give reverence to your ancestors and spirits, which there's more to that, especially if you don't know who your bloodline parents are. That's a whole nother process, which I've gotten into that before, but that's a little too time consuming now. I've actually done videos on it. Just look for any video with the ancestors in the archives. But yes, the answer to your question, yes, you can. I said yes to ancestors we're working with. And I've said for years, there's bloodline ancestral spirits, and then there's ancestral spirits that are guides that walk with us that technically are not blood related. Okay. So hopefully that answers or helps you with that. All right. Shout out to Amazing Nini. What's going on? All right. What else we got here? Okay. Let's get that. Bridget, thanks for the donation. Appreciate that. Patra's Music, thanks for the donations. Patra, the book, to my knowledge, I don't think it's on Scribe. I'm almost certain it's not. I do know it's available on Amazon, and you could also get a digital version of it. That's very inexpensive. If you have the Amazon or the Kindle app, you can get, I'm almost certain, I could be wrong. I don't believe it is on Scribe, but you can Google it and check if somebody has the ability that has Scribe and can do that now. Please do so and post it in the chat. But I'm pretty certain it's not. Again, you can get a digital Kindle version of it through Amazon, and you can get the hard copy. Again, this is a book you need to really study, scrutinize, and take your time. And I'm speaking to all. This is not a quick breeze through read. You're not going to get nothing out of it. If you think you're just going to breeze through the content, you're wasting your time. You need to really study, absorb, and really understand what it's talking about. All right, what else we got? Patra says, yeah, that's mind control when you're trapped in dogma. What's dogma, right? What's the definition of dogma? Let's look this up, right? Let's focus on it. We hear that word all the time. I use it a lot. But let me go to, for all the Google and the Wikipedia scholars, let me use a source that everybody's comfortable with. I'm saying that to be sarcastic. A dogma, according to the dictionary, I'll give you a couple meanings. A principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true, meaning there's nothing outside of that that is true. That's a dogma. A lot of people are trapped in dogma. What is an example of a dogma? Dogma is defined as principle or rules that cannot be questioned. What does this sound like? Or articles of faith in different religions. An example of a dogma is the 10 Commandments in the Christian faith. So any rules, laws, or principles that cannot be questioned, cannot be broken, is a dogma. Now, what other things fall under the category of dogma? There are a lot of people who practice traditional spiritual systems, be they African or whatever, that are following dogmas. Let's look at Ifa or Santeria. You have to deal with Oshun this way. You can only make an Elegua like this. In order to do that ceremony, it has to be done by this certain person who has this and blah, blah, blah. Those are dogmas. And you can't question them. You can't go outside of them. You can't have your own opinion. And you definitely most sure can't do it your own way, because then you're considered, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. You're not on this path. That's what a dogma is, people. Okay? Now ask yourself, whether it's somebody listening or somebody that catches this later, are you still in a dogma mindset? Be real with yourself. I'm not asking anybody to literally answer that now. Ask yourself, do you look at certain things through the perspective of dogma? And this is another example of shadow work. And can you be honest with yourself and go back and address it? All right. So that's what dogma is. Okay. All right. What else we got? All right, this is a good question by Akpan Faku, and I've gotten this many years, especially when I was in those older schools of learning. Not trying to go to the religious route, but Muslims say that Allah created himself from triple darkness. Can that be compared to the 3 trimesters of pregnancy? Symbolically, yes, but I always ask a Muslim, what is triple stage darkness? All right, because most can't even explain that. What's the first stage? What's the second stage, and what is the third stage? See, it's a heavy term when you don't really analyze it, and you can't really explain it. But hold on, I'm glad you bring this up, because this is something good to explain. I have some notes on it. All right, bear with me here so you get an understanding of this. Some notes I took in this old ass book. Here's some notes that I had from, hold on. Let me find it. All right. All right, in metaphysics, right? First thing you want to ask them when they say, and the 5%ers even break this down in their 120. Right? But I always ask this question. First, they need to identify what are the 3 stages of darkness, right? Or the 3 stages of creation, because they'll say Allah created himself in this triple stage of darkness. So you have primary creation, right? You have tertiary creation, right? I'm sorry, secondary, then tertiary creation, right? What are these things, right? And we even study this with working with the Necronomicon, Leviathan. Original or primary creation, scientists will tell you that's before the lightest atom, hydrogen energies that existed, and you can look this up, basic science, that existed as a form of energy existing in the form of gas, right? Now, some break it down as quarks, byads. Well, first it starts with atoms, right? Scientists said that atoms were the smallest particles going back a while ago. Then they found out that that's not real. Then they said atoms break down into byads, then zeals, then quarks, right? So they found that it's never ending, right? Now, they call it primary creation. We call it primordial chaos, right? So that's the first stage of darkness. So Allah would have to be, or God would speaking through this theory, would have to manifest in the primary. That's the first stage of darkness. How do you know that? Because their very Bible confirms it, because before God said, let there be light, is confirmation that what? He was submerged in that primary or primordial chaos. That's a fact. Okay? And this is a great question. And I know Brother Akpam Fakru, good to see you here. So that's the first stage. I say this because then I'm going to show you how it sounds deep, and it's in the Supreme Wisdom. It's talked about in the 120, the 5% Nation. This is something that I studied going back to the 5% days, even going back to the old Ansar days. We studied this, right? But now when I look at it from an occult perspective, it takes on a different meaning. So that's primary, the first stage, right? What's the second stage of darkness? What scientists and metaphysics call tertiary creation, the breath of life, the living soul, the existing conscious being, primary creation, right? That's when the Bible says, and God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. That's the second stage of creation that was so-called done by this being called Allah or God, right? So that's not original creation, right? Or primary, right? Because now Allah, who created himself, existed in that first stage, right? And then the third stage, I'm sorry, I skipped secondary. That's the third stage. The second stage is evolutionary creation, the evolving from density to matter, right? So let me back up. I gave you the third stage before the second. That, because after this being brought himself into existence from the darkness, then the secondary stage of creation takes place, which is evolution, the evolving of existence from density to matter, to molecules, to atoms, all these things that or organisms or living bodies, right? That's secondary creation, right? And then the third stage is what I just talked about, which is the breath of life, or when we talk about the creation of mortals, right? Now we are shifting into the three stages of creation, right? So again, you have primary, secondary, and tertiary creation. Notice the word tertiary has relation to the word scientists and metaphysics use as an old term or title for Earth called terra, or territory, or tertiary creation, right? One of the ancient names for Earth, okay? So the three sets, right? Here's the deep thing. The three sets, or triple darkness, first set before light, before energy, before matter. The second set before time, before space. And the third set before body, before soul and spirit, okay? So it's great when they say, and they don't explain, and trust me, you ain't gonna really find that. You'll find some of it in the 120, but ask them to explain what are the three stages of darkness? How do they tie into this creation or existence? Well, I just gave you a quick breakdown of it, okay? I've gotten that question so many times over the years, especially back in the day. And, you know, the Sunni Muslims used to like to ask that question, thinking they were going to trap you, for those that didn't accept their concept of Allah as some spook being, right? The Nation of Islam and the 5%ers teach that Allah created himself in triple state and triple darkness, right? NOI promotes it, right? But even the NOI is still religious in their understanding of that. Okay, that's the breakdown. So I hope that answers your question. But yeah, you made me go pull out some old ass notes on that question. I hadn't heard that. It's been years since somebody asked me that question. I haven't heard that question, honestly, probably since the late 90s, early 2000s. This is the last time I can recollect, to my knowledge, that somebody asked that question. And I know you're asking that because you have family members that are connected to NOI. And please don't go argue with your mother about that, because you're not going to win that battle, brother. Don't argue with moms about it. Let her have it. It's not worth it. All right. Anybody else? See, I think I got everybody. All right, it looks like, is that most people? Yep, I think we got most people. I'll give a minute for any more questions, but just to run through some quick things real quick before we close. Again, on the Patreon page, the Mask of Lucifer class is posted for August 15th. If you want to sign up for that class, it is $55. It can be paid by PayPal using the email address you see in the description box, kanum19@gmail.com. Please, in the PayPal notes, include your name and your email so you get the link to the correct email address. That's coming up on the 15th. For those that are Patreon members, we have the Kali Mantra Ritual Saturday the 25th, which is next week. That'll take place at 3 Eastern time. That's for tiers 3, 4, and 5. I encourage you to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Beniti. I've also posted on the Instagram page today, Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. I'm now doing shadow work readings. And again, I will advise you as I put in the post. They're personal and they're intense. It strictly deals with shadow work. It strictly deals with personal things that might be affecting you on a subconscious and a conscious level. We focus on that and that only. I'm also still, obviously, the main readings, the Klepothic, demonic readings with Lucifer, and the Holy Death readings with the spirits of the dead. You can reach out to me for any of those readings or a spiritual consultation by sending me an email. In the description box, you see the email. Let me know the days and times you are available in the time zone that you live in. All right, just wanted to run that through real quick. What else we got here? I see a couple more. Are there such thing as demon ancestry? Most definitely, yes. And I'm glad you bring that up. For an example, people find out when I do Klepothic readings with people, they find out whether it's the Lords of Darkness or some of the Goetia, who people know as the Goetia, whether it's the Princes of Hell or the Archdemons. Some people find out through spiritual divination that, yes, these spirits walk with them in ancestry. And some of them continue that connection because you might be here right now walking with one of them because you were chosen to carry that connection. But guess what? You will pass it on to somebody. And that's not necessarily always somebody that you known through the bloodline while you were here. It could just be somebody who is open and receptive in the bloodline. It could be somebody you don't have a strong relationship with, or it could be somebody you do. So most definitely, yes, there's a connection with that for sure, 100% certain. Okay, this is a good question too. Blade of Asteroid. It says, hello, Brother B, how would you define what a sorcerer is on this path? It is simply another name for black magic, or is it something else entirely? It's a method of practicing magic. Again, let's go through. That's a good question, right? Again, I'm just going to use common because I know people online, they can search for themselves. Let's look up the word sorcery, but then I'll give you my breakdown on it. What does it mean? All right, they'll give you basic terms in the dictionary. It says a noun, the use of magic, especially black magic, right? All right, it goes deeper than that. Then when you come down here, hold on, where is it? Hold on. Hold on, I think it froze up on me. All right. So that's the basic word. Then it says, then they go when you pull this stuff up on Google. Then the next one it says, what exactly is sorcery? This gives you it kind of starts pushing in the right direction. The use of power gained from the assistance or control of evil spirits. I'd eliminate that bullshit because the person who wrote this obviously is religious, especially for divining, necromancy, magic sense, etc. So sorcery, I want you to see that because sorcery combines multitude of tools on what we call the left-hand path of black magic, because you're using necromancy, you're using you can use divination sometimes in some case, or tools or systems of divination. But in essence, what sorcery is, it's changing the state or existence from one thing into another. Alchemy calls it coagulation, right? A sorcerer is basically the science that we use through magic of manipulating the elements. So when you say you are a sorcerer or a sorceress, you're saying it's a term for a magician who is skilled in the ability to do that. So, I mean, eliminate the evil spirit stuff. It also means a sorcerer has the ability to command spirits. So it's a term that underneath that term, it describes certain actions and powers that a sorcerer has, right? And actually, when we come down here, let's look where the word comes from, the language, and all right. The difference, now some people attribute sorcery to witchcraft. So right below that, if you Google it, right, and again, I'll throw out the garbage that they put in there. As used by anthropologists, the term witch identifies someone alleged to practice, this is funny, socially prohibited forms of magic, right, which is not true. While sorcerer refers to someone who intentionally takes on the role of the magical practitioner. I want to focus on that because that's true. When you are trying to become a sorcerer, you are intentionally had the goal to work that path or that scientist. You're trying to take on that role. That is an alliance. Now, the origin of the word, right? This, I always tell people to get an understanding is to understand the etymology of the word. So if you look it up, from the Middle English sorcery borrowed from French, sorcery or sorcery, derived from Latin sors, or fate, and from the Proto-Indian European, say, to sort or line up, right? So the word means to sort or line up. To sort or line up for what? Okay? To source or line up to be able to manipulate a situation, again, for the personal benefit of your outcome. Remember, every word we use in English has its point or origin from a language that came before it. So really the answer is in the etymology of the word, right? Because remember, when you're taking something from another language, anytime you translate something from a language that predates it, it loses its original meaning when you try to translate it into a language that came after it. And you could find people will tell you that in basic shit like Spanish into English, Arabic into English. This is why you see so many different breakdowns of the Quran, because chapter 20, verse 102, right? There's several actually. I've seen translations where they refer to it as the guilty blue-eyed in one translation. In one translation, it says blear-eyed. In one translation, it says the clear-eyed. How can you have the same word, clear, blue, and bleared, translated three different ways and completely mean three different things? Because the lack of understanding of the etymology or the origin of the language. So sorcerer basically describes all of those actions. It's a little bit deeper because it shows what the individual has aligned or connected themselves to, because they use a multitude of spiritual systems. In essence, yes, we all should be on some level of a sorcerer or sorceress on this path, because in essence, that's what we are. So in essence, it's the same, but there's a little more dynamics to it. It goes a little bit deeper, because when you say you're a black magician, you're just saying you use black magic, but there's many different forms of black magic. A sorcerer gets a little bit more defined on what they do, because they work with the elements, they connect with aspects of nature, they work with necromancy, divination, they use all of those tools. So it's just a more refined or detailed description of the many aspects that we use on this path, all right? So hopefully that helps. All right, and then I see one more here. Bridget says, have you found that certain energies rebel on you if you put them with others on your altar? Any particulars to give separate altars a separate room? Yes, the one that always stands out is the Holy Death. I don't encourage you to mix the Holy Death with any other working altars. Sometimes, and it's very rare cases, you got to know what you're doing. The black aspect of the Holy Death can be put on an ancestral altar because it does work with necromancy. It is a connection or energy to bridge to what we call the realm of the dead. But I would always make sure you're combining like energies. It can cause a lot of conflict within the individual. I've described it before. Physical disturbances such as headaches and sickness, and it can start to shake things up objectively in a person's life. So you should work with energies that are acclimated with each other. Be careful when doing that. Some will tell you no, otherwise maybe so. Maybe they have that experience. It's not that it can't. You have to know and understand yourself to really understand how that can work. But yes, it most definitely can cause problems if you're not familiar with what you're doing. Okay. All right. Just in Time says, I got a few more minutes here. I'm going to take a few more. Just in Time says, I did a Kundalini meditation and the energy was creeping up from my lowest spine and shot through my heart like fireworks, leaving a warm liquid over my heart. What the fuck was that about? Well, it sounds like you tapped into the serpent energy. We actually do, on the draconian path, we actually intentionally do a ritual like that where we visualize a coiled serpent at the base of our spine by the root chakra. And we experience what you describe, a warm, liquidy explosion, because Lucifer's energy or the serpent energy, and I just did something like that with a mask of Lucifer called Mephistopheles I talked about recently, which I'm thinking about doing a class on that. That is a very common, you described something similar. So it sounds like you tapped in to some aspect of that energy, which personally I would explore further. Obviously, it's personal, and I'm sure you need to really absorb every experience that you got from that. But it basically sounds like to me you opened yourself up to what we call the serpent or the dragon energy, because everything you just described kind of connects to that. I would explore it further. All right. All right, Cami. I'm just going to call you Cami for short, so I don't have to say that long name. One more question. If Lily told me that she is my mother, then wouldn't in the underworld I have power in my own throne? I've seen this in my dream experience and stuff relating to my afterlife. Okay, I would, again, what we just talked about, that is personal and subjective. I think you need to reason out how you connect with that in your subjective and how you can, again, bridge that gap in harmony between your subjective and objective. So you just explained something. You seem like you've already personally perceived it how you need to perceive it. If I sit there and tell you yes, then I'm kind of co-signing on that for you, okay? So I'm sure you did experience that, but it seems like you've already come to the understanding. Whether I validate that or somebody else does is pointless. I think you need to explore your connection further with that because it seems like you already have a general understanding of that. So that could most definitely be true based on your subjective understanding of it. And you're even confirming it through your dreams. So I would continue to work with it, connect with it, and see what messages, visions, and experiences you get from that. But anybody objectively telling you that's what it is really not going to matter, whether it's me or somebody else you know, because we really would be foolish to say that because we haven't had that same experience. That's what I'm trying to say. So the only thing that's important is your understanding of it. As long as you got that understanding of it, there you go. That's all you need. All right. Blade of Astar says, thank you for clearing that up. It really helped in debating that with some, which friends don't quite understand how it's different from being a witch. Yes, totally different. Again, witchcraft, okay, whether you say you're a witch or a warlock, right? When we were describing the definition of witch, remember, that's an English term that comes from the old English. A term used to describe working with forbidding. I mean, what kind of nonsense is that? But yeah, there definitely is a difference between it. And that's why you see, if you look in the hashtag in the description box of all my videos, I put three things. And I do it for a reason. I put occult, hashtag occult, hashtag Luciferian, and hashtag sorcery, because those are three key aspects. But it's a good question. All right. I think we have come to our end, people. Okay. I think we have come to our end. I'm going to do more work out of this Mind Star book. Again, the book is Mind Star by Michael Aquino. All right. I would encourage you guys to get it, study it. Not an easy read, not a read you should breeze through. You're going to get yourself fucked up and confused if you do. Take your time to study it. A lot of powerful information. I'm going to expound further. That's just a small section. There's a lot of good information in there for a black magic occult practitioner. All right. I will see you people sometime next week. You know where to reach me if you need to get at me. I thank everybody for the support here on the YouTube channel. I thank everybody who supports the Patreon page and the Instagram, Facebook, and all that good shit. I definitely most appreciate the support. I'll see some of you guys next Saturday in the Kali Mantra ritual. I'll probably be back online YouTube sometime next week, more than likely, sometime Friday or so. I'm not sure. I kind of just do it, as you know, when I get the time. Other than that, infernal blessings to all, and we will talk soon. All right.